Hello everybody, Storm Tracker 2 digital meteorologist Bobby Corser with you here in the Weather Center. As we look forward to a really beautiful weekend, I want to get us caught up on what we're seeing up on the mountain. We have seen a lot of snow over the last few days and particularly the last 2 weeks. But I want to put it into relation to where we are, where we should be, and kind of look forward. Now, I'm not saying that winter is over by any stretch of the imagination. We know that snowfall can fall into March and April and even into the early part of June up on Mount Hood. So just keep that in mind. We still have really, honestly, about 3 more solid months of winter to go up on the hills. Down in the valley, different story, but we'll talk about that another day. So here's our snow water equivalent map as of yesterday. So these are the latest numbers. 30% in the Willamette Basin, 37% for the Hood, Sandy, and Lower Deschutes Basin, 32% Upper Deschutes and Crooked River Basin, John Day, Wallowa, Grand Ronde, everybody in the 20s, 30s, or 40s. I mean, honestly, the best place for snow right now in terms of getting near average is the Grand Ronde, Burnt Powder, Imnaha Basin up there in northeast Oregon. So let's see where we stand right now in terms of what's happening on Mount Hood. So this is information as of yesterday, the 27th. When we tape this on Friday, you guys will be seeing this Saturday, so 2 days at that point. But 16.6 inches at the Mount Hood test site on the south side of the Poochie Snow Lift at Timberline Lodge. That number is up, as you can see. We've seen a little bit of snow in the last few weeks, so that's great news. We're sitting finally at some snow, but where were we last year? Well, we were at 43.2 inches, so basically a third of what we saw last year has fallen. Not good, but not the worst, so that's good. Worst year now, we've transitioned out of 1981 to 2005, and we'll talk about 1981 and 2005 here as a comparison going forward to what we're seeing. Now, one trend that I have seen, and we will talk about specifically in this video, is what about next winter? Now, I know I'm getting way ahead of myself. We still have 3 months of snowfall to go for this year, potential snowfall to go for this year, and then the winter months starting again in October, coming up now in just, honestly, what now? Gosh, 7 months, 8 months away. So I want to just look forward to that. And the reason why I want to look forward to that is when I went back and I looked at the years following the lowest snowpack. I took the lowest 5 years, but I wanted to focus on 2005, 1981, and then 2011 because those are the 3 lowest. We're now in the bottom 5, so 2025. We don't know what will happen in the second half of 2026, but we're going to look at specifically 1981 and 2005. So we sit at 16.6 inches. Now, where were we in compared to 1981? Well, we're above 1981, so we're no longer the worst. We're still in the bottom 5, but at least we're not the worst. So this time in 1981, 16.6 inches compared to our 16.6 this year. Well, what happened in 1982? 1982 rolls along and check that out. That's a huge jump. Adding 50 more inches of melted snow water equivalent. So that time, basically March 1, February 28th, March 1, 1981, 16.1, 66.7 inches for 1982. That's a huge jump. And 1982, as you can see, is that blue line there. They had a huge year for snowfall. So that is great news. So, okay, comparing 81 to 82, great. Well, what about 2005? Where do we stand in relation to that? Again, 16.6 inches as of the 27th of February. They were seen at 12.1. They are the lowest now through basically mid-March, and then 2011 takes over for the remainder of the bottom in terms of where we fall out when we look at all the years going back to 1981. So there we are. We're 4.5 inches above where 2005 was at this time. Well, what about 2006? Again, another huge jump. So we went from 12.1 to 52.8. That's a huge jump of, again, basically 40.7 inches of snow water equivalent melted down. That's great news. And this pattern repeats itself from 2011 to 2012. So, again, we don't know what's going to happen the second half of this year. But based on trends and based on what we have seen in model data and what we have seen in past historical data, I feel fairly confident, and I would say about a 75% chance, that 2026, 2027 up on Mount Hood will be much, much better than what we're seeing this year. Now, people are asking, well, what about, La Nina, El Nino? Where are we in the ENSO cycle? Well, we're still in a very weak La Nina now. We will transition into ENSO neutral and then be eventually into an El Nino pattern by the time that we get into late summer and early fall and then into winter. Not surprisingly, we saw the same thing happen in 1981 into 1982, and again 2005 into 2006. The same pattern also repeats itself in 2011, going into 2012. So we're seeing that these are the best matches for where we're at. When we go back and we look at, say, this trend line from 1981, we are basically following that from about February 1 to the current thing. So this is why I'm thinking that we will still see a decent shot of snow as we go through the later parts of this winter and then as we shift into spring. If we follow the trend line here from 1981, we'll see a snow ramp up. And I mean, again, even going back to 2011 and 2005, all of these saw this, where you see that bump basically starting in April, snows for a while, and then eventually it will taper off. When we are comparing the year over year, these are called analog years, right? We plug in our data, we see, trying to find the best fit for what it is. All of them say that if we're going from a weak La Nina to an ENSO neutral and then into an El Nino pattern, the following year the snowpack gets better. So that is why I think that next year, or this next winter, will be significantly better than what we saw on Mount Hood this year. Now, we could still shift into an ENSO neutral pattern, which is forecast, and maybe that really ramps up our snowfall as we get into the second half of March and into April and then May. And then usually by mid-May is the time that it kind of peters out. Again, you see the little green X here on the screen. That is your average. That is where, everything kind of starts to fall off right there. And so that's roughly, I think, April 24th, April 25th. And then it's a relatively quick melt-off. I will say this. In the years where we did see the melt-off, and we'll go through this chart, we'll kind of click through here and look at these. So in 1981, the season ended on June 20th. Okay? 2006, the season ended on June 1st. Sorry, that should be 2005. 2005, the season ended on June 1st. 2006 was very close to average, which is June 30th, July 1st, is usually when we stop seeing any snow at the Snowtail site, like I said, on the south side of the Poochie Lift up at Timberline Lodge. So if we can make it to June 1st, I think we're closer to average, even though we've had a really bad snowpack on the first half of winter, now into the middle half of winter. Still to be determined what happens once we get into spring, kind of that last shot of winter weather up on Mount Hood. So that is why I'm fairly confident, based on the data that we are seeing, that this upcoming winter will be better. Years after snowpack, like we said, in 1982 we saw 88.2 inches, in 2006 68 inches. The median for any given year is 60.3, and the record snowpack we saw, and I'll go back to the maps here, the record snowfall that we saw happened in, or had a total of 102.4 inches. So that's the absolute record at the very top of the screen here that you guys can see on these maps. But it's very interesting to just kind of look and see. So again, 16.6, the year that we're in right now, that median there with that green X, 60.3 inches. And again, that usually happens just in late April, right before May 1st. And then we start that melt process off. By the time we get to June 30th, July 1st, no snow on the ground. However, there are years where we do get snow staying on the ground at Timberline through mid-July and early August, which is great. And then hopefully you have a quick ramp back up to start seeing snowfall in October and obviously November, December, January as we go through the next winter. So that is what we are thinking. Again, it's early to even kind of forecast out for next winter, but based on historical trends, we are seeing that years after bad snowpacks, the following year is usually a rebound year where numbers are much better. This isn't just for the Mount Hood test site. I've seen this at other snowtail sites in the Cascades. And I talked to a few videos ago, I talked about my favorite data set in Sun River. We talked about their lack of snow this year. They're finally up to just about 13.5 inches, I believe. I was over there last weekend, had a little vacation, had a great time as I always do. Snowed a few days while I was over there. Nothing more than a few inches, but they had some snow the previous few days, which really ramped up the total. They went from 8 inches to 13.5, so a good 5-inch, dump for them. But they are now, just about, I think, 1 or 2 inches away from being above the worst that's ever happened. But every time that we have seen a really down year, it's followed by an immediate spike up the next year. So something that I'm going to be looking into and kind of really digging more deeply as we go out through the spring and then the summer and then really hammer it hard next winter is, where are we seeing the rebounds here? Are these trends continuing? Do we see the snowpack of winter 2026, 2027 rebound after a dismal 2025, 2026 snowpack? So that's what we're looking at here. That's what, again, I think I'm fairly confident that is what we will see up on Mount Hood next winter. So I am relatively excited to see what happens. Now, of course, we've got to go through spring, we've got to go through summer, and we've got to go through fire season first before I'm really excited about getting, in tune for next winter. But just very interesting observations I'm seeing here, going through the data, looking at the year over year. So hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Of course, Avery is in every morning, Saturday and Sunday. Sarah is here tonight and Sunday. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Enjoy it. Weather is going to be beautiful. I got to show you the 7-day. Hold on one second. Actually, before we do that, people are asking, well, wait, what about snow? Here's our snow map. Here's our forecast as we go forward the next few days. Nothing really happening. Again, we're under a nice area of high pressure. Temperatures remain pretty much close to average. Don't really get any other shots of cold air. More cold air back east. There is some cold air that wants to come in about 2 weeks from now, but that usually seems to be the trend, so I'm not really putting too much stock in it. But we will see. And then, of course, we finish out this loop as we get into another week, another ridge of high pressure, then some more shots of cold air want to come in. Make sure you guys download the Storm Tracker 2 weather app. It's available on the Google Play and the Apple Store. It is a great app. We control it. I had it with me on vacation in Sun River. They issued some watches and advisories. I got that. It was fantastic. Take it with you wherever you go. And, of course, here's your 7-day forecast. Being beautiful today. Highs in the mid-50s. Overnight lows in the mid-30s. Sunny all the way through Tuesday. Rain developing Tuesday. Hopefully it is Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, which is the way it looks right now. Remember, we have a full lunar eclipse late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. It starts technically Tuesday morning, just about 12:44 a.m. and will last for about 6 hours. So if it's clear, you can go outside, look up, you'll see the blood moon. Really cool feature. I love the astronomy side of this job as well. So a lunar eclipse, always a good time. I've seen it a few times in my lifetime. Looking forward to hopefully seeing it on Tuesday night. Like I said, have a great weekend, and I will talk with you guys next week.